Thank you very much. Thank you for being here today. We're looking forward to an engaging panel together. You're all famous. You're all well recognized in your fields. Before we go into what are you doing in your careers, I mean, the question that I'm sure everybody's asking, what drove you to your career in the first place? How did it happen that among all of the things that you could have become, you chose to do what you do and you persevere in doing what you chose? And my first question goes to Ms. Michel. Ms. Michel, it's often said that something is not as hard as rocket science. And this is not a rocket science, right? People kind of imply that rocket science is the most difficult thing there is. How did you choose the most difficult thing there is? And what makes you successful in your career?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really honored to be amongst esteemed guests to be here. And thank you for being here to listen to our story. Hopefully it will inspire you. In my case, my story started when I was very young. I was 6 years old. My mother took me to Uneza Desert. Uneza is a city in Qasim region in Saudi Arabia, and at night. And so when I went there was no light pollution. And I looked up to the sky and saw such a high density of stars. And some of them flickered, some of them didn't, some of them had this reddish hue, some of them had this bluish hue. And I was mesmerized. I was like, Mom, what is this stuff? This is beautiful. And then no one really gave me a very good quality scientific answer. So not that I had that breadth to understand it, but I was like, oh my God, I really need to understand this stuff. I need to fully grasp what's up there. And my sister one day was so tired, and she's like, listen, I'm sick and tired of you asking all these questions about the stars just from that day that we went to the desert. I'm gonna tell you what happened. She got a piece of paper, put some glue on it, put some glitter, and then picked up the paper, and she's like, see, this is what stars look like. This is exactly what God did, and that's what stars are made out of, glitter. And I was like, I don't think so. So then I was like, okay, guess what? I need to understand stars. I need to understand space. And the only way I can understand it is to go to space. Well, how am I going to go to space? I need a rocket to take me there. I was like, that's it. I got to be the person who makes the rocket so I can get on this rocket, so I can go to space, so I can understand space. And from then on, that's really what I wanted to do.
Amazing. That's such an amazing personal story. But hang on, what happened next? All right, so you had this like feeling that this is what I want to do, but then what did you do? I mean, how did you get into your career?
So obviously, very young, I didn't know this was called aerospace. I didn't understand any of this, but as I kept growing, I had an insane curiosity to figure out how things work, how cars work. I blew up the house a couple of times. I used chemicals. I did so many things because I had this insane desire to understand things around me. And so it just kept growing. And then as I grew, I kept asking for, like, I remember on my, when I was in grade 6, so I was about, I think, 11 years old, I asked my mom for my birthday gift, I want every encyclopedia you can get me, I want it. So she got me all these encyclopedias, and I started reading every single one. And then there was, back in the day, there was this thing called Encarta, where online, which was an online encyclopedia. This was at the beginning of like ICQ and all that. So then I was researching, and that's how I started to learn about more and more, and figured out like, okay, this thing is called aerospace. That's the field that you're supposed to be an engineer in, making rockets and airplanes and so forth. And so that's how I learned that this is the field I need to take, which is aerospace. But also, I have to caveat this with the fact that my father is a pilot. And so I used to fly with my father. As a matter of fact, I flew an airplane before I drove a car. When I was 6.5 years old, I was with my dad, and he gave me controls of the plane, explained to me what to do, and there's an actual video of this that I posted. I went nuts. I was like, oh my God, this is so much fun. So there's I think an element of having it in my blood that's there. So airplanes and aerospace, they go hand in hand. So it worked out for me.
All right. Thank you very much. Miss Amna, I know that you're the first woman to take a job in your family. And out of all the jobs you could choose, out of everything you could become, you chose a career in finance, and you chose an educational upbringing in STEM. Why is that? What is your story?
So first of all, I didn't choose the career because I wanted to work at FMCG. So I applied at P&G, they rejected me. I applied at Unilever, they rejected me. I applied at Nestle, they rejected me. Uh, so Citibank was the only employer who gave me a job.
All right, that's fair enough. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Masaka. Yeah. All right. Please continue.
So then I thought, okay, maybe I'm not good for FMCG, so maybe I'll work for a while in banking and financial services, and then maybe gain some experience and go back to FMCG. And then once I came into financial services, because when you're rejected constantly, I think at one point in time you start doubting yourself. So at the age of 18, I was rejected by medical schools. And then my family said, okay, since you can't get into any school, why don't you get married? So that was the first rejection. Then I was good at maths and I was not good at biology. So my teachers would always tell me that, you're really at the bottom of the class. So we don't know what to do with you. Then it continued when the big firms rejected me. So I think from that failure and rejection, at one point in time, you lose the belief in yourself. But once I entered the banking and financial services, the drive for me and the determination to prove myself was really, really high. Because I think there are two things that can happen when you constantly face rejection and failure. One, that it can really bury you when you go down. The other is that you want to prove your naysayers wrong, right? So I think I was very determined, like, I changed 13 countries in my career, lived in different continents. For me, changing a country was more like changing an apartment. I always went out of my comfort zone. I was very blessed to work with super talented people. And I think with perseverance and courage and always surrounded by smart people, I figured a way out and I love what I do now. So I'm so happy for all those firms who rejected me. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story of resilience. Did you ever think of changing your career and doing something entirely different?
Never.
Go crazy.
Never.
No?
I love what I do.
You love what you do. That's amazing. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a great start. Miss Rometa, crossing the South Pole is, of course, a remarkable achievement. Let us actually congratulate you on that, if you don't mind. What sparkled your interest in this? Was it more adventure, or was it more the scientific part of it? How did you come to get to do it?
So it started with the scientific. As a marine scientist, that's part of what you study, right? Understanding biodiversity, understanding what the natural treasures of the world is, specifically in the seas. And you learn very quickly as you study this that the most natural, biggest place that's protected in the world is the Antarctic. So that was just a fascination naturally that I need to actually go and see that and really capture the essence of all the biodiversity that you can. And then, unfortunately, as I kind of tried to get my way into the scientific field and do research there, you find out very quickly that only if you're a national of a country that claimed Antarctica is how you can actually go on a scientific mission or find ways that you could cooperate with them. Unfortunately, I come from Oman. Oman is the furthest away from Antarctica as it could be, so that was not naturally a good fit. So that changed into, I need to find some other way to actually get to the South Pole. I was fascinated that it was the last wilderness on Earth, and that the entire world came together and said, let's protect this place for years and decades, right? So then that became an adventure. How can I actually go there? And the only way that you could go to the Antarctic and reach the South Pole is to ski there. So I was like, okay, let's learn how to ski. So I spent 2 years learning how to properly ski cross country, might I add. So in Scandinavia, learning in the pitch of winter where there was no sun, just learning how to cope with the temperature and skiing, and then really building your capabilities to actually be able to do this fitness-wise. In addition to being a marine scientist, I was a former athlete, so that really came in very naturally for me. The obstacle, however, was how do I fundraise for this? This costed around $250,000 US fully, and we're talking about 12 years ago, where the funding for these trips are not as easy as it was now, people thought that I was actually going for a natural individual holiday rather than actually raising awareness for the environment. So I actually got over 180 rejections from companies that didn't want to sponsor me because the main justification was, how can I justify this to audit that I'm actually funding a person and not a company? And I'm like, this is absurd. But luckily I had in my disposal the company that I worked for, other good Samaritans that really wanted to really help. So then I went to the South Pole, skied for 56 days continuous to reach the South Pole. But within all of this, there was also another societal challenge because I was made fun by my own grandfather saying that you won't make it.
Oh.
So he was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't do this. Like, women don't do this. You should just be home, safe and sound. And I would say a lot of, at least from my family and a lot of societal in the GCC specifically, when men tell you not to do something, is from the concern of safety rather than, no, you should not do this because we don't believe in you. It's more like we need you to be safe and protected because we're all kind of, it's in their head, specifically men, that they need to protect their women. But yeah, it was a big challenge between me and him for a good 2 years. The year before I left, we ended up having a bet between me and him. I was like, okay, I bet you if I go and I reach the South Pole, you admit that women are better than men. And that's very difficult for a tribal leader to say.
Did you do that? Did you admit?
If I don't make it and I fail miserably, then I will be the usual girl with her abaya chilling with coffee in a mall.
Yeah.
And we will all settle our differences there. He was like, deal. He didn't know that in 56 days, he won't have not even an inkling of hearing my voice or hearing if I was safe. And that really apparently, and I had no idea, really put the anxiety through the roof through the entire family because they had no idea. It's like, is she safe? Is she this? We have no idea. So as soon as I reached the pole, the first call that I did was actually to my grandfather using the satellite phone and told him I made it. And the first thing is like, okay, you win. Women are better. Just come back. I'm done with this. Yeah.
That's amazing. At which point of the story, or maybe before that, you decided to join a marine scientist career? How did you choose that?
Quite a long time. So when I did the expedition, I was 23. I wanted to be a marine scientist when I was 10 years old. And it was very distinct. I remember the exact time I was receiving mail that my dad usually, so my dad is a subscriber of National Geographic when it was the publication with the yellow, really nice looking frames. And even if you walk into our library today, you will find so many yellow books of all the old collectible editions of National Geographic. On that specific May, the cover of the magazine or of that edition was a green turtle from Oman. And I was fascinated because I had no idea that they existed in my own home country, because I lived by the capital where you don't see a lot of that sort of nature. And I was like, what? This is here? And I remember reading the entire cover story and telling my dad that I need to go here. And then he gave me an interesting fact, telling me that actually it's quite close to where your grandfather lives, in the eastern part of Oman. And I was like, what? This is insane. I need to go tomorrow. And he was like, okay, when it's nesting season, we will take you. And I think that relationship started from there. And I knew very early on. It was still a battle because my own mother wanted me to still become a doctor, because that was a mission in life, that one of my children will be a doctor. Luckily for her, I'm the firstborn, so she had 5 other kids that she could put that on. And my second sister actually became a veterinarian, so mission accomplished for her.
Yeah. Win-win.
And I was lucky enough to kind of pursue that career. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Such a story. Dr. Swat, we heard from Miss Michelle that her father took her on a plane before she could even drive. Who took you where? how did you choose your aerospace career?
Well, first of all, welcome everyone to United Arab Emirates and Dubai. I think one of the biggest events we are waiting is the week convention. To be honest, I grew up without father. He passed away when I was 10 months. So my mom, she's a person. We came from a family. They are entered to Guinness Award of the biggest family have a doctor, medical doctor. So if you name any doctor or any, seriously, if you name them, either my sister, my brother, my cousin, and they thought because I'm the youngest, I will have to be a dentist or a plastic surgeon. And my mom, she has those all huge list, which university I will enter and how is my career and every single thing of my career. And I love science. So in the school, I remember till grade 12, they let me to repeat the physics, chemistry, math, because I brought full mark. And I'm talking about 24 years, which is you have to study 2 books, 3 books. And they were having a doubt why she brought all high mark. And when I was so young, I went to my brother's school, stealing their cars, airplane. And my mom, she always got angry, like, you are not a boy. You cannot play with this toy. So she got to buy for me dolls and makeup. After 2 days, I returned it to the shop, go to return it and buy cars, airplane, engine, all of this thing. And when she was staring, she's checking, where is Suad? She find me is behind the cars, full of grease, full of carbon. I remember one time, actually, I break her engine of her car because I was running the car. I was almost 11 years old. Running the car, there's something wrong, open the engine, see checking. And thanks God, I learned how to fix cars now. And I decided never, I don't want to be in medical. And I promised her, I will be a doctor. I'll let people call me doctor, but in a career that I really love is aviation industry. And everyone thought like I'm a dreamer. You cannot do it. As like aeronautical engineering itself is tough. You have to go for mechanic. And those days when you apply an application, they were actually putting the gender is male. So what I do, I keep erasing with the pen, like any place, university or organization, I erase it and I said, why? We are equal. And one day, actually, my mom, she fed up and she said, you have to enter to the medical school. And this is the first time I got a slap from her. And guess why? I was running from medical school, giving my money for a garage in Al Gouz to learn how to fix cars. And this is the first time in my life I got failed. I always full mark. And she said, you are psycho, you are so crazy, you will never be able to do it. And I said, nothing can judge us or say for women what she can or what she cannot. I can wear high heels, but I love wearing safety shoes. I can be with makeup, but I can without makeup. It doesn't judge me as per my gender. It judged me about my brain and how I love it. And one day, I remember a guy, he came to fix his car, and still I remember it was Mustang 1969, and actually I bought it from him after 10 years. And this is the first car I fixed it, and he asked me what you are doing, and I told him like, I'm from UAE, I want to be an aircraft engineer and no female. And then he asked me, who can make your dream true? And I told him only His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. And he gave me his phone and he said, talk to him. And I was, you're joking. You're seeing a child, 16, 17 years old, and you're thinking, talk to him. And actually he answered the phone and I told him I want to be an aircraft engineer. No university accept me. After 10 days, I got a scholarship to UK and I finished my education. He sponsored me full till my PhD. I hold a PhD in double major aeronautical engineering and aviation management. And when I came back, I work now in the industry 18 years, starting as the first female aircraft engineer in United Arab Emirates. And now I'm a consultant for 2 biggest airlines in the world.
Thank you very much for sharing your stories. That was amazing. And if I may, I just wanted to highlight that these are the stories of passion. These are the stories of immense curiosity. These are the stories of resilience and overcoming. And this is definitely very inspirational for all of us. Thank you. Now, this is very impressive and very inspirational for us. However, the numbers are painting a different picture. In research, only 28% of the workforce, 28% is women. That's not so bad, actually, right? That's not 8, that's 28, right? That's more than a quarter, but that's not a good number. And in other occupations, in other STEM occupations, this number will be much, much less. The question is, how is that, and what can we do to change it? And I wanted to address first, Ms. Michal, back to you again. Becoming an engineer, was it hard? Did she accept you like without problem? There was any additional challenges you needed to?
So when you say accept me, are you talking about like in school? So I grew up, so while yes, I am Saudi, both my parents are Saudi, but I grew up in the States. So in college, for sure you can apply as a woman and get in. What I've noticed is there's two problems. There's entry and retention problems. So the first hurdle that one has to go through is entry into the field. The second hurdle is whether you can maintain that position or not. And what I've noticed is especially when people, especially women, sometimes feel the need to make a choice afterwards. So even if they enter, they have to make a choice. Well, I want to have a family, but I can't do both at the same time. And I think mainly because the work environment is not really made to support that kind of system. They're made to support dedicate yourself to us or bye. That's it. So that's got to change in order to change the retention problem. The other element is you need to get people to enter into this field, you have to change the conversation and the inherent biases that exist from the home. And you will be surprised at many women and many fathers that are at home, not necessarily realizing that their inherent biases that they grew up with are transferred to their kids. So for example, you go to any home today and you say doctor or engineer, immediately the image that pops up is a man. It's not a woman. And so that has to change from the home. And that's the responsibility of the parents to make sure that that exists. And that's why one of my roles is to be I am the vice president for diversity initiatives at the International Astronautical Federation. And my role is to push the envelope in the space sector and in the aviation sector to get more women into the workplace, to get companies to make a commitment for the KPIs to ensure an equitable opportunity for all. Because women do bring a different perspective. They have a very, like you said, it's really what matters is what's in your head. That's it. What you dress or whatever, how you look is irrelevant. So what's important is that you create an environment that is welcoming. You start to use gender-neutral language so that it becomes the language of inclusivity. So that people, even young children, can feel like, okay, gender is irrelevant in this perspective. Anyone can do it. The third element is to have more and more role models from different cultures, different faces, different skin colors, anything, because kids identify with people that they look like. So whether it's a female, whether it's a male, whether it's someone who's a darker complexion, lighter complexion, you have to have more role models. Not just the superstars, but also role models within your community, role models in the home, role models across the entire spectrum. That's how you really begin to make a full change, to bring in people and to retain them. And in the retention problem, you have to have organizations actively taking a role in making sure that the environment is welcoming and supportive of people who want to have a family, whether it's a woman or a male, because in today's world, a male should take on this responsibility as well.
Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Dr. Swat, back to you. As a consultant to the industry, do you see the landscape in the industry changing and becoming more favorable to women? What is being done to do it, and what is still left to do? What would you do on top of the effort that is now ongoing?
Well, it's not just a consultant. As a lecturer, I teach in university here in UAE and Coventry. We find that a lot of the new generation, they are happy to enter to such a field either science, aviation, aerospace, but the main consideration after the graduation, we find that a lot of mentality, they are more away and scared of, as Mashal mentioned, that should I choose to build a family or to be a leader in my career? Still, the mentality showing that woman, if she's a leader in such environment or career, she cannot have children, she cannot have a family, she can be weak. For me, I have two boys, and I'm proud to say they are boy, 9 years old and 6, and actually I make them engage in my career. The most important is to show the capability and the skill for the women. Yes, as you mentioned, the percentage increased to 28, but when we are talking about aerospace and aviation, we are still 13%. And a lot of women still, they resign or change to the management because they are scared of the working hour, the environment, the society, what the people will say about me, and even I cannot be a leader. So the land is there. The industry is growing. Today, when I'm talking about the aviation and aerospace, it's very, I cannot say it's an old industry, it's very new industry. The opportunity is high, not only as an aircraft engineer or pilot. If I will name the career we are having under this industry, you will fill up, a lot of women will find a job, but still they don't have the awareness, the education side, what actually the benefit. Today, when I'm talking about after 24 years, the benefit what I was getting previously, today the women, they are getting 100% better than us. So I do appreciate to understand and get more awareness to show, as Michelle and the rest said, share your story. In social media and marketing today, a lot of organization offering a program. How many of you knows that the airline, they are offering high school program for pilots, engineer, manager, and now the aviation medical? Raise your hand. Very rare. If you know the biggest airline in the world, they are offering either for local or expat a special program. After high school, you don't need to send your son or your daughter outside. They can actually get salary, they get benefit, get education, and after graduating, actually, they can get a job. So this is the opportunity. A lot of people, they're not aware, and this is our role as a consultant and in the management, a leader should share this information with a lot of women to understand what they have and the benefit they can get.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the story. Mr. Maita, back to you. We've discovered that on top of every other thing that you did, you also became, in 2008, if I'm not mistaken, the first women commentator on football in the Arab world. And I don't know how about you, dear audience, but I can imagine a marine scientist being a woman. But I definitely cannot imagine a football commentator to be a woman. That's very, very rare. I wanted to ask you, what were the challenges of you becoming this? In a marine scientist as well, but also the football commentator. Is it an adverse field in the sports space? People are somehow precluding women to become this, or actually supporting? What is the story there?
Wow, if I talk about 2008 and now, it's a completely different discussion altogether. We're seeing, as we're seeing everywhere, women's football is even way more popular than men's football. And a case in example is the World Cup of both the men and women. The women had more attendance actually as well when it comes to the matches. So it's a very different discussion. Even in the region, it's more embraced.
Of course.
Every single GCC country at the moment has a national team. Back when I started, and the main reason when I mentioned I was an athlete, I was actually part of the national team of the under-17s before. We probably were only one of 2 or 3 teams in the region that actually had a national team at that point. I'm lucky enough to have parents that were very supportive. My tribe was not supportive at all. I would remember them coming every weekend to just give an earful to my dad on how this is possible for a girl to play football. But then I think for me, I was quite sheltered because my parents were very like Mama Bear and Papa Bear. protecting me, so I didn't really feel that heat until I actually went on the media and did football punditing, actually. That's when all floods broke loose, and the comments were quite insane. We would get we would get callers on air talking about how I should go back to the kitchen and cook. Some would say you should go back and clean. This is not your place here. You don't deserve to be here. While I was the only one out of everyone else that actually had a history of playing professionally, and the others didn't. And we're talking about a time before social media is the social media that is today. So you don't necessarily have an outlet to kind of showcase what you're doing to really break that stereotype and get more people to kind of be in your corner. It was more getting caricatures on national newspapers, including Emirati newspapers, who really made fun of the fact that there was a woman. To the extent that there was one very popular caricature that had like so many millions of impressions back when it was forums, of how all the men were so afraid of going into the studio because I was there. And then things became quite worse, actually, when there was actually fatwas and Jum'ah sermons, Friday sermons that said women should not be pursuing sports because it's very violent for them. And it's haram for women to do this. And it was quite an attack on a person who was really shaking the industry at that point. Lucky for me, what I ended up doing, because I was doing this in Arabic, I decided, since I'm bilingual, actually I'm trilingual, so it was easier for me to switch to English. So I decided to stick to English because it was much more of a saner community, I think, there. And then you would actually get, throughout the years, comments from people who's like, I used to listen to you on the Arabic station and you persevered, well done. Lucky for me, because I ended up doing that. And I think it also has to do with the fact that the power of self-soothing is so important, to really tell yourself positive talk, to self-regulate when you're really thinking that things are going out of control. I feel that builds a lot of confidence. So I ended up not really caring what any other person had to say about what I did. So long as I was happy with what I did, I was okay with culturally, whatever, religiously, I'm not doing anything wrong. It's just that people are not comfortable. That really made things move towards the right direction. If we speak about now, I think that conversation has changed quite drastically. We're seeing fathers now come to me saying, can you come and speak to my daughter? I want to kind of convince her more to kind of continue playing football. And we're not talking about the region. We're talking around the world. I have friends from Mexico saying, can you just jump on a Zoom call with my daughter just to encourage her, because they're facing some issues as well with women not really being appreciated there. And I think as we continue pushing forward and making it more mainstream in terms of it's okay for women to be in the sports, in whatever field that you take part in getting male allyship, it's so important to get male allies to really come and support you whenever you are talked over or forgotten altogether, mansplaining and all that. There must be a man in the room that you speak to beforehand in order for them to really champion this. And also sponsorship from men saying, what can you do in order for you to help me reach to the ranks that I want to reach? And once these are in place, I think there's a lot room for us all to grow.
Amazing, thank you. And it's very encouraging to hear how the conversation is changing over time. This is amazing. Ms. Samna, over to you. In your distinguished career in MasterCard, you are now doing pretty much everything, so many things: strategy, operations, digital, mergers and acquisitions. There's no end to it. How did you learn to do all this? What is the role of learning on the job? And do you think that in all these diverse things that you are doing, what is the valuable perspective you are bringing to these fields as a woman leader?
So, first of all, thanks for sharing a lot of inspirational stories. And it's amazing to be on a stage with all women and a room filled with women. So congratulations and well done to the organizers. I've rarely been on panels where I see most women around me. They've just proved that there are women out there. Organizers just need to find them. So I think I still find the question always strange when people talk about benefits of diversity or what as a leader I have learned with diversity. Maybe I'll ask a small question to the audience. I was in Turkey just a day back. How many of the women go to a hotel and they cannot find a hairdryer? How many men go to a hotel and they look for a hairdryer? None.
There's one. There you go.
You have beautiful hair. So I think it's always a problem for me, and I read about it. There are only 14% women in the architecture and design industry in hospitality, right? So it's such a small example, but it tells you that when half of the world is women and half of the products are consumed by women, why won't you have half of the women actually designing those products and those industries as well, right? So I think for me, it comes naturally that there was a choice that I was not given in the environment that I was in. So I have that choice. I have to empower more and more women to give that choice because that's the only way the world can move forward. But I would say there are three things that we really need to take care of. One is there is the competency and likability bias for women. Men who are more competent, research has proven they're more likable. Women, when they're more competent, they're less likable. Second, I would say the dinosaur in the room that no one addresses is, and most of my leadership team is women. As a woman, when I enter a room, I start with -10. As a man, when you enter a business meeting, your worst case scenario is 0. I have to work my way towards 0. And I think we're still talking about gender parity, but we have to start acknowledging, understanding, and recognizing women for that. I have been at events where someone would hand me over their coat because they would not believe that actually I am the person they have to meet. I've also been at an event where a very senior person at a multinational thought that my colleague was either my husband or my boss and actually my colleague he was very kind enough to say at one point in time, she was my boss, right? So I think to your point, it's all around us. There was a research done in the US how parents in the park were encouraging the boys to climb, but for the girls, they were saying, oh, you'll fall down. This is the way we are raised. Last point I would say, which I see it in so many women, is a lack of self-belief and confidence. Till date, I've never offered a promotion to a man who said no. But I've offered promotion to women who said no because they're not ready for it. I see women who would enter a meeting and not say a word. Then I would say, why didn't you say something? You had so much of content. And this woman was like, but I thought I was about to say it, but then someone else said it. I thought my point was not valuable. I was like, do you really think men think like that? You know, there's no barrier between the brain and the mouth for men, but for women, there's a lot that's going on in between.
Yeah. There's a lot of empathy clearly in the audience. Yes.
Yeah. So, you are in a meeting, make yourself heard, be visible, raise your hand for the job you want. You don't have to care. It's not your problem who's in the job. You have to raise your hand. Demand the salary that you feel you are worth, Those are the things that we have to change. And to your earlier point, we have to start raising girls and boys differently.
Thank you very much. Well, this is to you as well. We're having an amazing conversation. I'm very, very, very thankful. I want to do just one thing before we go. I want each of you to formulate just one sentence only, of the most important advice you would give to young aspiring women who would want to follow your trail. This one sentence will go one by one, and I'm sure you will be, as Ms. Amna put it, heard, and this will be very inspirational for our audience. Ms. Michelle, please, over to you.
So for me, I think the best advice I can give is don't be afraid to fail, because in my opinion, failure is the seed from which success grows.
Thank you. Mr. Maitha. Oh, there you go.
I would say chase your dreams and don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you can't.
Thank you. Ms. Amna.
I would say perseverance is the key that can open any door.
Dr. Suat.
For me, it's don't let people to determine you as per your gender. Let's be a human. Forget about female and male. Do what you love and dream. Everyone know me. I always believe in one sentence: if you can dream it, you can do it and achieve it with big smile. Thank you.
Fantastic. I love the smile. I love the smile bit. I think this is amazing.